Hello and good early morning, Facebook family. My name is DrAnnetteMD, and I'm your board certified pediatric cardiologist coming to you live from the great state of Virginia, home of the Virginia Cavaliers 2019 Men's Basketball Championship. You guys know I'm going to be saying that all year long. Very proud of my Who's. So anyways, as you all know, I've been doing these Facebook Lives in an effort to increase awareness about heart disease, as it is the #1 cause of death in men and women worldwide, and also in an effort to promote heart healthiness so that we all live long lives. So today, I wanted to revisit a topic that I talked about a few weeks back, and that was stroke. And the reason why I'm revisiting this topic, because recently in the news, you may have heard that film producer, film director John Singleton died at the age of 51 from a stroke. 51 is young, guys, and this was preceded by the death of Luke Perry, who died also in his early 50s from a stroke. He was the star of Beverly Hills 90210. John Singleton, he was an African-American, if you didn't know, he was an African-American film producer and director who created such works as in Boys in the Hood, which is a cult classic, not just in the African-American community, but in our American film industry, period. And he was the youngest to be nominated for Best Director, and the first African-American to be nominated for Best Director at the age of 24 for the Oscars. So it's a huge loss to our community at large to have him die from something which for the most part is preventable. And he had uncontrolled high blood pressure, which unfortunately led to his death. So what I wanted to talk about today, again, was what a stroke is, risk factors for stroke, signs and symptoms of stroke, and ways we can at least try and minimize getting a stroke, risk factors that can be modified. So what is a stroke? So a stroke is any disruption or interruption of blood flow to the brain. Because when this happens, then you're decreasing the amount of oxygen, decreasing the amount of nutrients to the brain. And this can lead to disabilities or even death, because the brain cells are going to die because they're not getting what they need. And there are two types of stroke. There is ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke. Ischemic is the most common type of stroke, and it occurs 85% of the time when the stroke happens, or with stroke victims. And an ischemic stroke is when there's a clot that blocks blood flow to the brain. A hemorrhagic stroke is when there's a rupture or bursting of the blood vessels to the brain. As far as risk factors for stroke, mostly in adults, high blood pressure is a risk factor. And high blood pressure is anything at or above 130/80 is considered high blood pressure. So you really want to watch your blood pressure when you go to your doctor's office, or even if you're at the CVS, maybe just getting that blood pressure checked to see where you are. So blood pressure is a risk factor for stroke, and then diabetes is a risk factor for stroke. Atherosclerosis is a risk factor for stroke. And atherosclerosis is the fancy medical word for saying that there are plaques, that there's stuff in the inner walls of the arteries that lead to your brain. And what can happen, and these plaques are caused from like high cholesterol and, eating a fatty diet. So what happens is these plaques can break off and make their way, the medical word we use is embolize, to the brain and cause blockage there. So those are the risk factors for stroke. As far as recognizing the signs and symptoms for stroke, just like I talked about in my Facebook Live a few weeks ago, is knowing the mnemonic be fast, B-E-B, fast, F-A-S-T. So the B stands for balance. If you ever feel or sense any kind of uneasiness or loss of balance or see it in someone else, it could potentially be a sign for stroke. E is for eyes. If you start to experience double vision or blurry vision, that may be a sign or symptom of a stroke. Then F, the F for fast in our mnemonic. So F can be facial drooping. Okay, if someone smiles and it looks crooked or uneven, that may be a sign or symptom that they're suffering from a stroke. A is for arm weakness. So say you have someone raise their arm up, you help them raise their arm up, and then you let go and it just drops, they can't catch themselves. That may be a sign of a stroke, that someone's having a stroke. The S is for slurred speech. When someone is having a stroke, they can't speak as well. It almost sounds like they have cotton in their mouth when trying to speak. That may be a sign, a symptom of a stroke. And then T is time to call 911. If you see any of the above symptoms, then you want to be on alert and call 911 so that you can get help as soon as possible to help yourself or help that person that may be suffering from stroke. So as far as ways that we can decrease the risk of stroke, and really for the most part any type of preventable heart disease, is by really knowing yourself. And by that I mean knowing your blood pressure, know what, have a relationship with your primary care physician, with your doctor, and make sure they're taking your vital signs. And with your vital signs, it should include your blood pressure. And again, high blood pressure is considered anything at or above 130/80. Okay. Also knowing what your weight is, because you want to maintain a good weight. Having a weight enables us as physicians to calculate your BMI, your body mass index. And a normal BMI is anywhere from 18.5 to 24.9. So if you're above the 24.9, or just for easiness, above 25, you're considered overweight. And that might be a trigger for you to, improve your lifestyle, whether it's by exercise or eating better. So know your weight, know your BMI. Also know your cholesterol level. Because if your cholesterol level is elevated, then you can, again, go ahead and make those changes in your lifestyle that'll help bring down your cholesterol. And, ideally, you want a total cholesterol at or less 170. Quite honestly, for me, if it's under 200, it's good. Above 200, then you really need to have that conversation with your doctor in ways in which you can bring it down. Sometimes it's lifestyle changes, and sometimes it may mean that you need to be put on medication to help bring those levels down. The other thing that you want to do to decrease your risk of having a stroke is exercise. Make sure you're getting a good amount of exercise in per day, if not per week. The American Heart Association recommends for adults that we get at least 150 minutes of exercise per week doing moderate to vigorous activity. Okay, so walking, not everyone's a runner, not everyone's a swimmer. Just walking can make a huge difference, especially if you're consistent and do it most days of the week. And for children, the American Heart Association recommends that they get 60 minutes of exercise per day. So that's a good amount. The other thing, or modifiable risk factor that we can do to decrease our risk of stroke, is what we eat, our diet. Make sure we're getting at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Make sure that we're getting our fiber. Fiber helps decrease the LDL, which is a type of cholesterol. It's the bad type of cholesterol that sticks to the arteries. That's the one that causes the atherosclerosis that I talked about earlier. So make sure you're getting your fiber from your whole wheat, your grains, your nuts and foods like that. Also decreasing the amount of processed foods, and the reason for that is those processed foods have a high amount of sodium. And it's the sodium or the salt that drives our blood pressure up. So decreasing the amount of processed foods, the times we eat out, the Mickey D's, the Chick-fil-A's. I know it's good stuff, but it also could be killing us as well. So decreasing the amount of that. And then just aiming for no more, I'd say, than 1,500 milligrams of sodium in your diet. So basically, when you're reading those food labels, and it says, sodium 500 milligrams, just knowing that you have wiggle room of 1,000 more milligrams to go before you've reached your daily intake of sodium. Because again, it's the sodium that drives up our blood pressures. And what you should do as far as decreasing the risk is, again, establishing that relationship with your primary care physician. If it's a doctor that you don't like or care for, get another one, because it's imperative that you have those relationships with your healthcare providers. So, in conclusion, or to wrap things up, stroke is largely preventable by what we do in our lives, whether it's through diet or exercise. As far as recognizing the signs and symptoms of stroke, be fast, B for balance, recognizing any type of imbalance, E for eyes, blurry vision, double vision, F is for facial drooping, uneven smile, crooked smile, in someone who may be suffering from a stroke, A for arm weakness, S for slurred speech, and T, if you see any of the above, make sure you call 911. So, Facebook family, hope you guys have a good Friday, good weekend, and see you next time. Take care, guys.